Yesterday we had some time with the kit where we understood the working or the Python code to activate the LEDs and to read the uh, settings of the switch, whether the switch is on or off. Let's continue with the same mechanism to uh, test two other components, which is very important for our IoT activity. One is the buzzer and the other is the relay. So as we proceeded yesterday, let me just try to activate those two devices using a simple testing code in which for the buzzer I'll be using the GPIO 0 module because it's very easy to use that. Whereas for the relay, we will have to use, we cannot use GPIO 0 because there is no built-in relay module available there. We have to go take some other wire route. So instead, we can go with the contemporary RPI.GPIO module to activate that. This is a very simple code and should be able to do this without any fuss. Okay, there's only few lines. In fact, only code is only this much. Okay, I hope you are able to see this code. So what we do here is I just put some comments here. This triple quote is used opening and closing. Whatever you write in between that is treated as a multi-line comment. Though I have written only one line here, you can use it to add multi-line comments, whereas this single hash is used to add one-line comment. That line will be treated as a comment. So what we do here is we need two modules to be imported. One is the time, because we'll have, after switching on the buzzer, after buzzer is turned on, we have to wait for a few seconds before it is turned off. So that waiting can be easily implemented by using sleep module. I mean sleep method, which is defined inside this time module. We have seen the usage of that in the last session. And from GPIO 0, I'm importing one module called submodule called buzzer. Okay, just like LED or button, buzzer is another module which can be very handily used. And there are a lot of variations with the buzzer module. I mean, it can be activated in different ways, but we are just activating it as just on or off. So if it is on, the sound will come from the buzzer, and if you turn it off, it will be turned off. As simple as that. So the code here almost looks very similar to what we have done yesterday. So I import that buzzer module. This is not required actually. Okay. So next thing is I will create one instance of buzzer. I just call some name BZ. You can give any name. Buzzer instance. One instance of buzzer is created. And remember that we had two methods of naming the pins or numbering the pins. And as GPIO 0 inherently uses BCM mode of numbering, I'm using the BCM pin number 20, which actually refers to the board pin number 38. Okay, there's a board pin, physical pin number is 38, but the BCM number for that is 20. So I'm using BCM pin number 20 here. Just for clarity, I have marked it, typed here one comment, board pin number is 38. Okay. Now, how do I turn on the buzzer? I just have to turn it on for maybe 1 or 2 seconds. In this case, I have turned it on for 1 second. and after 1 second, I'll turn it off for 2 seconds. Okay. Actually, these print commands are not required in the actual experiment. Here I have put it only for the sake of knowing that while loop is actually entered. Okay, in case if there is any error or anything, we will get to know whether this loop has been entered or not. For that reason, this is kept. In the actual practice, this is not, print statements are not required. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, this while loop is a continuous loop or an infinite loop. This much part of the code will be repeatedly executed because the while has been given the argument true. Okay, so this part will be continuously executed, and if you press Control C, then the loop will be exited. Now there is a reason why it is put inside a try block, try except block. So if there is a Control C pressed, or for any reason if the Control C is if it is not recognizing Control C, you can go to this Python shell and press on this interrupt execution.
Sir, excuse me, sir. Can you just increase the font size?
Yeah, let me see. Actually, I'm taking it on my PC and broadcasting. That's the reason why it's showing a little smaller.
In format, it can change.
Yeah, I think let me see that. Font. Yeah, yes. Is it okay?
Okay.
Should I increase further? This will be okay, I guess.
Little bit, sir. Little bit. Now it is okay.
Yeah. The only thing is I may have to scroll it down when the program becomes bigger. Here it's in one screen. There's only difficulty. That's okay. I hope it's visible now. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this while loop, when it is entered, it will be continuously executed until you press Control C. So once you press Control C, or once you execute this, once you click on this interrupt execution, then this while loop is exited and the statements written in the except block will be executed. So first it closes the instance of buzzer, and this again, this print statement is actually not required, just for the sake of some indication that this program has gracefully exited. For that reason, I have kept it. It is actually not required in the true practice. And finally, exit from the program. Okay. So should I wait for a few seconds before? Okay, now when I execute this.
Yeah, executed, sir, already.
Okay, fine. So maybe you can hear that beeping sound going on and off. You can try with different timings here in terms of seconds, different timings. I kept on for 1 second and off for 2 seconds. Okay. So if I just close the program now. Okay. So it's a very simple program. Now, what is the usefulness of this testing program is, so actually what we have done is we have just tested the buzzer now. We just know to which pin it is connected and how to turn it on and how to turn it off. Now, this mechanism, or rather this method of switching on and switching off, has to be used in conjunction with other sensors. Say, for example, whenever I press the key, one of the key, the buzzer should go on. I don't want it to go on indefinitely on and off for a certain length of time. Instead, I want it to go on when I press a key. Okay, when I press the key, the buzzer should go on, and when I release the key, the buzzer will go off. Okay, so we can configure it for that purpose. Maybe it a little higher, and suppose if you are linking this with the gas sensor, whenever there is a gas detected, whenever there is a gas detected, you can make the buzzer to go on. That's the way we want to arrange the program. Okay, but this just gives you a little confidence on, or other little idea about to which pin the buzzer is connected and how to turn it on and turn it off. So essentially, this is a testing program, nothing more than that. Nothing very of any particular usability. So we have to write this. I mean, we have to use this in conjunction with other sensors or other devices. Then the actual usage of the buzzer will be appreciated. Okay, so I'll close this program. Now we shall see one more program where we are trying to activate the relay. Okay. Yeah, this is also a one-screen code. So once again, this is used only for testing the relay. This doesn't do any useful thing. We will know just to which pin the relay is connected. I'm not using GPIO 0 here because there is no relay module available in GPIO 0. So the only way, if I use GPIO 0, I have to treat this as a LED module and use LED on off for controlling it. I not actually experimented it. Instead, I thought I'll use GPIO RPI.GPIO module to activate this. So the code, the initial part of the code looks a little longer. I mean, two, three extra lines to initialize or to set the things properly. And the activation of the relay, this part of the code is almost same as the buzzer, but we have some 2-3 extra lines over here in order to activate the, in order to properly set the pins that pin corresponding to the relay. So the pin is actually set to 16. Relay pin is 16. Okay, and the BCM mode is used here. Okay, the relay, BCM mode 16 corresponds to where is 16 here? Yeah, GPIO 16 is here. So it corresponds to board pin 36. Okay, so it corresponds to the board pin 36. The RelayMet connector, which connects the two connectors on the board, which is near the buzzer, it takes the our pins 36 and 38 to the relay and buzzer respectively. Okay, and what we are doing here is we are switching off the warnings. Okay, warnings are not displayed. The pin configuration or the pin numbering mode is set to BCM mode, and GPIO is now that pin is set as an output mode. Okay, the pin is set as an output mode. After this, once again I use a try and while block. Now here, instead of true, I have written 1. You can equally write true without any issue. Both are same. So what I will be doing is I'm outputting relay pin. So here actually the value 16 will be substituted when it is actually executed, and that is set to 0, and wait for 2 seconds, and then set the value to 1, and then again wait for I think I made it 1 second, wait for 1 second, and then again this is continuously repeated. And when you press the keyboard, this will clean up the, that is whatever pin it is holding, pin number 16 it is holding, and that pin will be released, and just once again a print statement which says that it has exited, and it comes out of the So when I execute this, the relay is going on and off alternately. I have not used any LED here because along with the relay there is one already there is one LED, and you can see that whenever it is on, that LED will go on, and when it is off, the LED will go off. So the indication for the status of relay is already on the board. So there is no need to repeat it with one more LED assigning to that. Okay. Now, another one program I would like to execute before going to the other utilities, that is combining the different things together. Okay, so let's see whether we can combine all these relay, buzzer, and sorry, no, not buzzer, not relay. I not included relay there. Buzzer and key. Okay, whether we can combine buzzer and relay, buzzer and key together along with the LED. Yeah, LED key buzzer. Now the organization of the code is slightly different here. Okay, we have defined some functions, and that function is invoked in the event of detecting the key pressed. I'll be using LED 4 and button 4. That is the last one of the bottommost LED and the rightmost key. Okay, so I'm using GPIO 0 here once again. And from the GPIO 0, I'll be using buzzer, LED, and button. These three submodules are used from GPIO 0. And you may see one more extra line here. From sys module, which refers to system, I'm importing one sub method called exit. Okay. Okay. Now, actually, you can even if you don't use this line, it should be fine. Okay. So I'll be creating one instance of buzzer here. We know that buzzer is connected to pin number 38. The BCM pin is 20, and the last LED is connected to the physical pin 5, or the BCM pin corresponding to that is 3. Okay, and button 4 is connected to the board pin 23, but the BCM pin numbering is 11. Okay, so these three lines will create the instance of buzzer, LED, and button respectively. Now, what I want to be happening here is, whenever I press the button 4, LED 4 should go on. Along with that, buzzer also should go on. And when I release that, buzzer should go off. Along with that, LED also should go off. Okay. Now there are two activities to happen: LED 4 and buzzer. Both should go on together, or both should go off together. But to this instance that we are creating, I mean, this interrupt that we are creating here, I can assign only one function. So I'm not using buzzer on or LED on here. Instead, I will create my own function in which I turn on both the devices. Okay, so I'm defining one function buzzer on, and inside that I'll be creating. I mean, I'm using these two methods. BZ, which is the buzzer instance, that should go on. On is a method on the buzzer instance. Similarly, on is another method on LED 4. So buzzer and LED will go on inside this function whenever it is called. Similarly, buzzer will go off inside this function. So this is the two functions which are defined to activate the buzzer and LED together. Okay. So now I'll create that interrupt as we did in the very first experiment yesterday. So what should happen when the button is pressed is buzzer on function should be executed or it should be called. So again, remember that I am not actually putting the bracket here, it will be wrong. So it is, I have to put only the reference to that function. So I just write the name of the function. Okay. So in Python, if I just write like this, it is called referencing that function. So I'm not actually calling the function here. Instead, I'm giving a reference. Calling the function is done by this interrupt. So actually what happens, as I mentioned yesterday, whenever I press the key, there will be an interrupt generated and interrupt service routine will be executed. And now the service routine is actually this function. That's what you are setting when you do this. Similarly, when you release the key, the buzzer is turned off. That means this function is executed. Okay. Now, essentially what I want is, I want your program, we want our program to wait for us to press the key and release the key. So it should be on a continuous loop. So that's why this is put on a continuous loop. And on pressing the Control C, that is on using the keyboard interrupt, I need to close the program. And closing the program is done by bz.close. Of course, while closing, I need to say some, I need to execute this bz.close. So that will remove the instance bz. Similarly, LED 4 and button 4, when they are closed, the respective instances are removed. And finally, I'll exit from the program. Okay. So when I execute this program, so nothing will be seen on the board. The LED 4 will be off, and it just waits for me to press button 4. So when I press the button, as long as the button is held pressed, the LED will be, the buzzer will be going on, and when it is released, the buzzer will go off. Okay. So that's all happens in this code. Again, what is to be understood from this program is how to combine different activities. Okay, how can I make the buzzer go on the instance of pressing the key? Now, as an extension to this program, I want you to try something on your own later. Can you make the relay to go on instead of buzzer, or buzzer and relay both together? Now, there's a small catch over here. The relay activation program that I just did previous to this was using RPI.GPIO. It was not using GPIO 0. Okay, so there's a small issue, and one way to tackle that is you treat the relay as an LED. Okay, use GPIO 0 only, but treat the relay as an LED. So when LED is turned on, means relay will be turned on. So I can use that LED. So you can use some LED 5 or whatever it is. So when I use LED 5 dot on, the relay will actually go on. So I can use LED 4 dot off, LED 5 dot off, the relay will go off. You can give you can give any name to that. But because there is no relay module available inside GPIO 0, if we want to operate relay, I am forced to go for that RPIO.GPIO module. In a given program, I cannot mix them together. So you can operate the relay as a LED module also, because the functionality is nearly same. Whenever I write 1 to that port, the relay goes on. Whenever I write 1 to the LED goes on. So the same mechanism is used. So instead of relay, you can treat it as an LED. Okay. So I leave it as a modification for you. Instead of maybe instead of buzzer, you can make it as a LED instance. Okay. So it is an extension of this program or the modification of this program. Yeah. Okay. So the basic testing part of LED, then keys, buzzer, and relay, we are nearly done with that. Let's go further with the couple of methods or rather couple of utility programs which will be useful for our next part of the illustration. So the first, we have three problems to be identified here. So the first one is, how do I identify whether internet connectivity is available in my system or not? Okay, so let's use some already built-in modules. Now, of course, I can always find out in Python or in Raspberry Pi, I can easily find out whether I'm connected to the net through Wi-Fi. On the topmost corner, I think I'm moving that mouse over there. On the top right corner, if you take the mouse, you will see the Wi-Fi symbol. And if I hover the mouse on that, you can see that you can see the IP address, and also you can see the status. Okay, status of my internet connection. It says that WLAN 0 is configured on the particular IP address 192.168.1.5. So I know the IP address is available there. And another is okay, Ethernet link is down. I have not connected anything to that. Okay, so I can know very easily from Raspberry Pi. So manually, I can easily find out what is the IP address and whether internet connectivity is available. Or in the command prompt, if I type ipconfig, if I type ipconfig command, okay, I think there's some issues. Well, there's a command. I think I'm just clipping that memory. There's a command where you can know the configuration of the internet connectivity available to you. Okay, but I can easily know manually. I can easily know the IP address. I can easily know whether net is connected or not. But can I get this information under Python control? Can I write a few lines of code to know whether the uh, connection is available, or whether the internet is available, or if available, what is the IP address? Okay, so I've just made one or two small codes to understand to know this. I'll just illustrate those codes. You can actually use your Python itself. If Jupyter Notebook is available in the Raspberry Pi, you can use it. If not, you can just type in the code in the same place where in the shell you just create a new file. Okay, you can create a new file, and you can just type that code in the new file and save it and execute. Both will be that is also okay. Now here I've already created that program. Okay. Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll just copy paste this program into a new, so that it's visible with a larger font. Okay. Yeah, it's just this much. I have to add only one line here. I'll just call that function is connected. Okay. So I need one socket module. Okay. These are the this will actually create a connection to internet. It is used to create a connection to the internet. So import socket. Now, I have arranged the program in the form of a function so that I am not interested in all this. This is all taken care by the function. So I just want to know whether it is connected or not. So I want the answer to be true or false. Okay. So this function will return either if it is connected, if net connection is available, it will say true, or else it will say false. Okay. That's all it will do, nothing else. And it is arranged in the form of a function, and all the activities of detecting the connectivity is written inside the function. So I am using a name to the function as is connected. So the name itself looks like a question, whether it is connected or not. Okay. We have similar kind of names for given to the different methods in other string or list, those kind of data types. Is upper, is lower, try to recall that. So in the same manner, I have given this name is connected. Okay. So if it will try to make a connection, okay, it will try to create a connection to google.com on port number 80. Now remember one thing here, create underscore connection is a method in the module socket. Okay, so I have imported socket module. So I'm calling the function or calling the method inside that create underscore connection. I have to give just one argument. Remember that this is given in the form of a tuple. Okay, this is very important that you can see the double bracket here. It is not a single bracket. So a single argument in the form of a tuple is given here. It is the address google.com and the port number. Okay. Now, in case if the connection is made, then the value of sock will be something. It will not be none. And if in case if the connection is not possible, if the net connection is not there and the connection is not possible, the value of this sock will be none. Okay, none is empty. So after this, we are just checking whether sock is not none. If it is not none, means it is something is there in that, then the sock is closed and it is returned true. And normally, in case if the net connection is not there, there will be an error created. And in case if that error created, it comes out of this try block, automatically it comes over here and returns false. Okay. So the idea here is the try block is executed. If the connection to this website is possible, it returns with true, means the net connection is available. In case if there is error, if there is any error in connection, then the try block is exited and it enters the except block, and we have not written anything here. It comes out this. Pass is just a statement that do nothing and get out. Okay. So it comes out of this also, and it returns false. Okay. So when I execute this program, the result will be either true or false. Okay, the result is either true or false, and okay, I'll let me execute this on the Jupyter notebook. You can just what you can do is you can save this program with this name. I don't want to save this program in another name. Already there are too many files. Okay, so just save this program with some name and execute that program by clicking on this. Okay, run F5, or you can press F5 to execute that. So I have written this is connected in another block. So it is saying true that net connection is available. Okay. In fact, there is one more method using URL-lib. I think we don't need that many methods. One method which works all the time, that's good enough. This fellow works all the time, no issues. Okay, even if the net connection is not available, it properly says true. I'm not in a position to disconnect my net and make a, testing of this. Maybe sometime later, you can try it from your end in case if you can disable the net. Because if I disable the net, I will not be able to transmit the screen. Okay. So for that reason, I will not test that with the false condition now. Okay. Now, another important point we need to know is the IP address. Now, remember that I can always check for the IP address by taking my mouse onto that symbol onto that icon of internet connection, Wi-Fi. So it shows 192.168.1.5. But can I get this under program control? Can I automatically make my Python program to detect what is the IP address? Okay. So for that, once again, I'm writing a small program here. So I'll just put this program into the editor here. Okay. So now I should call this get IP. Okay. So this actually attempts to make a connection once again, and so we are creating an instance of socket. These are some constants defined inside the socket module. Okay. This is actually the socket net datagram, and dgram stands for datagram, and this is actually mentioned as some a group of what is a family of IP packet. Okay, I rather wish you try to Google it out and find out what is this, what are these constants. So those who are well versed with networking, they should be able to tell you more on this. This dgram stands for datagram, and it's all coming in the UDP IP connection. So essentially, we are creating a socket, and we are trying to in that socket we are trying to connect to one address. Okay, some address. I have just picked up these codes from internet and found that they are working under all the conditions. Okay, so this is once again a tuple. You can see the double bracket that you need to give here, and the instance of yes that I'm creating here has one method called gets sock name. Okay, now get that sock name. This returns actually a list. So in that list, the first item is the IP address. Okay, the first entry in that list is IP address. So what we are trying to do here is we are just getting that list by applying this get sock name method onto this socket that is created. And in case if the software or your code is not able to reach the website, okay, it creates an exception, and in that case, we are creating the IP address to be 127.0.0.1. Now, this is actually your local IP address. In case if there is no network connection, the IP address assigned is this local host. Local host will have this address. So if the address that this function returns is 127.0.0.1, you can understand that network connection, your Wi-Fi is not configured, and the IP address is actually now configured to the local host, which is this one. And in case if the Wi-Fi is connected, okay, then the actual IP address, in my case 192.168.1.5, that will be returned. Okay. So if I execute this, now that Wi-Fi is configured, you can see that I'm getting this address 192.168.1.5. Okay. There are some other methods I have marked it here. There's actually a short form for what we have already seen. So I'll not I'll try to send this code in my IPY, this Jupyter Notebook file later. But for our purpose, this code is good enough. Okay. Yeah. Now we saw two things. One is how to find the this status of the internet, and how to find the IP address of the internet, in your Wi-Fi. Now, should I repeat this code every time, whenever I want, or can I create just one file out of this and make it usable? So there's a very simple organization of this code that you can try. Okay, so I'll remove this function here. So what best can be tried here is, I really don't need to repeat this. What I will do is I will just save this file as some utility file. Okay, I'll just illustrate that. Now after this, first the internet status. Okay, internet status, I have a function here. So I'll copy this function and I'll put both of them in the same file. Okay, I'll put both of them in the same file. So I have the function which defines, which detects or which determines whether internet connection is available or not in this one, and in the second function which gives me the IP address. Okay, so now what I will do is I will save this. Remember, I have not called the function anytime. Okay, though I have written the function, I have not called it anywhere here. I have not called the function. Okay, in this file, I am not going to call the function. So instead, I am saving this as one file in my home directory, and let me call it as some utility.py. Okay, I've saved it in the home directory as utility.py. So in my in any other program, if I want the services of these functions, what I can do is I'll just illustrate that in the command prompt itself. So same thing can be done inside a program also. Okay. So I'll import that file. Okay. Remember, I have to store that file as utility.py. So what I've done is I've imported that file now. Okay. Now to check whether net connection is available or not, what I have to do is I have to call that isConnected function. Okay. So I just call that function. Okay. Now isConnected function is available in the utility file, utility.py file. So while calling the function, I will have to type this file in which that is available, and I have to type the name of the function isConnected. Okay, so it's giving me the answer true. Okay, similarly, I can use the other function dot what was that? It was get underscore IP. Okay, so it is giving me the IP address of the system as of now. Okay, so this is one important mechanism in Python, that you can create your own collection of functions, important collection of function. I just call it as utility. You can call it by any name you want, and collect it in the form of a file. And remember, inside that file, I am not calling any of those functions. I'm calling those functions wherever I want. So if I want these utilities to be available to me in any other program that I write, in that program, I will import this file. Okay, I'll import this file and then just use it in this manner. Okay, utility dot is connected or utility dot get underscore IP. So this is one good mechanism available in Python. I can collect my own functions for different activities and collect it in a single file, and I can call it whenever I want. Okay. Yeah, these are two things which I wanted to discuss about the couple of utilities. And what else? Okay. Fine. Now, the next part that I wish to discuss about is the internet connection. Sorry, the sending mail from your Python. How can you send mail to a designated mail ID? Okay, from your Python code under program control, how you can send mails. Okay, I just need 1 minute. I'll just give me 1 minute. I'll just shut down this. There is some issues. Sorry about that. There was a small issue with my laptop actually. It's almost fixed. Okay. Now, when it comes to the sending and receiving mails, I'll not talk about receiving mail today. Sending the mail, we need one thing that I need to send it from one of the mail ID, sending from the source ID, that is the from address. So you need to log into that address, and then from there you can send the address, send the mail. Okay. So that's very important that you must have one base ID, and from there you can send the email. In fact, I am using one mail ID. I have created one for my Raspberry Pi, and from that mail ID I'll be sending the mails to the destination. Okay, the to address. Okay. Now, another aspect here is about the password. So unless you create or unless you give the password, the even in Python code, you will not be able to access your mail. Okay. So how to work around this? I mean, how can you give the password? How do you give the password in your program? Now, usually, until recently, it was accepting the password that your normal password, your text string, whatever you give, it used to accept until recently. I mean, about a couple of years back. But later, okay, we are actually talking about Gmail, as most of us have account in that. Now, Gmail has, I mean, Google has changed this policy some time back, maybe about 2 years. So if you want to log in to your email ID in a Python code, you need to get one application password. Okay, or it's called app password. Okay, so how do you get an app password for your Gmail account? Suppose if you want to log into your email ID from Python code, how do you get a password? The login ID is whatever email ID you have. Okay, email ID, your email ID will work as a login ID, but you need a password. Your normal password will not work, but instead you need to get one app password, which can be easily obtained by going into. So I'll just tell you the procedure how you can get that password. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is you should have logged into your Gmail account. Okay, I have logged into my Gmail account, and the email ID is ravi.raspberrypi@gmail.com. Okay, this mail ID was created long back, maybe about 4 or 5 years back, and this is the login name that I'll be using for the experimental purpose. Okay, now how you can get one application password for your experiments? Okay, so best thing is open a new tab, and you can go to this myaccount.google.com/security. Okay, myaccount.google.com/security. Okay, so under this go to this security. Okay, it is highlighted there. I hope you are aware of the two-step verification process in Gmail. In my experience, that is a very good option. Like you should always enable it. Two-step verification is to do with in case if you log in from a new device. Okay, in case if you make an attempt to log in from a new device, like tomorrow you change the mobile and try to log in from another device, or you want to log in from one more computer somewhere else outside, it will not easily permit you. You need it. It will ask for some verification code coming through your mobile. Okay, so the best option is you using this same tab. You can enable that. Okay, I have enabled it. So I cannot log in from this mail. I cannot log into this mail ID. If at all I try to log in from another machine, it will ask for an OTP, and only if that OTP is provided, then login is possible. Okay, so there's a good mechanism from the security point of view or from safety point of view. So you can enable it. So even if you don't enable, there is no problem with the application password. Okay. So if it is not enabled, it will say that it is off or it's not enabled. So in the app password here, okay, in the app password, before I go to the app password, it will try to ask my credentials once again. Okay, so you can give in your credentials. In fact, I'm not going to operate this now because my password will change. And okay, now here you can give your password, and in case two-step verification is required, you can give that. And there you will find one okay, I'll just tell you the method. Well, you can see that that page is okay. So if you click here, it will ask for your credentials once again, and after that, there will be one icon coming here to create an app password. Okay. So first thing, there will be two things here. One is to which application. So in the application part, you can say that it is mail because you want to access the mail. Okay. So you can set it as mail and say create password. So once you create password, on this corner you will get a 16 character password. Okay. You will get a 16 character password, and you save that password or you write it down on a piece of paper on somewhere securely, and we'll be using that password in our program. Okay. And another important thing here is these app passwords that you have created will automatically disabled, or it will be in fact it will be cancelled once you change your main password. For the Google account, if you change the main password, this application passwords will all be cancelled. You will not be able to use it once again. Okay, unless you create it again. You need to create that again. Okay, so that is another plus point from the security point of view, so that nobody else will be able to use that. Okay, so you can try to create one password for your purpose, and how to manage this password and how to use this password in the application in your Python code. We will see that shortly. Yeah. I need to go to that Jupyter notebook. Okay. Okay. One bad practice I have done here is I have displayed my password. Okay. Anyway, I will change it after the session. It is not a good idea to display the password in this manner. I'll tell you how this can be worked out later. Even there is one utility in Python where you can type in the password and you can hide it from any other person from viewing it. Okay, so we'll show you a little later. Now this is how the code I need to send any email to the recipient. Okay, I am using one library called SMTP-lib. Let me just mention here that there are, if you browse through the internet, you will find few methods. Okay, you will find few methods which reads differently from one to another. And I have just picked one of them. Now this send mail function that I am writing, that I written here, can be worked with any kind of mail. What I mean by any kind of mail is the mail that I am composing can be only a text mail. It can be an HTML mail, or it can be a mail with some attachment in the form of image or attachment in the form of any other file. Okay, this can be used for any type of such mails. Okay, it's only have how many lines here? 3 + 4. If I remove this password and from address, it's only 5 lines. This can be used with any kind of emails, whether it is with attachment, without attachment. Okay, and the difference is only in the way in which you compose this message. Okay, so message is actually a mail object here, which may contain only some text message, or it might even contain some complex attachments, multiple file attachments or a single file attachment. Attachment may be of type of image file, or it can be some PDF file, or it can be any other file. Okay, so the difference is only the way in which you compose the message, which we will see that shortly. Otherwise, this is the only 6 lines of code. In fact, I don't need the password and from address to be part of here. I can create this. I mean, I can define this as some global variables and hide it from this function. Okay, and there's the best way to do it. Now here only I have, for the sake of clarity, I have written it here. Now you please don't type whatever I have written here. You type your email ID. Okay, and here you should type your password corresponding. Password for this email ID. Okay, so and also this is a secure shell, means whatever is happening inside this will be encrypted. Okay, so there is no need to worry on that factor. Whatever you write here, like login or this sending the message, it will be sent in the encrypted form. That's why we are using this SMTP_SSL. And the code is fairly simple. This is actually your SMTP server. Okay, smtp.gmail.com is the server, and this is the port number. And I'm just giving my own name for that, for the local usage. I'm calling it as SMTP. You can call it by any name. Okay, and these are just 2 constants that I'm defining here, which can be defined in a global sense. Actually, there is a right practice, as I mentioned before. So here I'm logging into that server. Okay, and here I am sending the message. And as this is the function, the message is actually coming from outside. Whenever I call the function, I call it with message. So the best thing is, what can I do here is, I can just copy this and paste it in my utility program. Okay, the utility program that I had written earlier. Yeah, I can just paste it here, and I can use this send message as a function. Okay. So only thing I need to do here is I have to invoke this, or I have to import this utility function. That's all I need to do. Now, how do I use that function? To use that function, there are few use cases, like whether I should send the message. I hope it's so visible to everybody now. As window size becomes less, there's a problem. Okay. So once I have this function defined, I'll make that function available in the memory. Now to create the program, to create the message, once again, if you search in the net, you will find different methods. I just picked up one simple and understandable procedure. Okay. So I will import one utility which will help me to compose these messages in a very easy manner. Okay. So email is a module which is these modules are already available in your Python as a basic utility. Okay. So I import one submodule from this email module, that is from email.message import email message. Now this module will help me to compose the mail in different ways. Okay. So yeah. Now note the spelling here. It's actually in capital case. The E is capital here and the M is capital here. So in case if you type it in a small case, the things will not work. You will get an error message. Okay. So this is very important. So the first thing I do here is I'll create one instance of this e-message and then keep on adding the different attributes to that. The different attribute here is what is the subject for the mail. See the way in which it is, see how easy it is to add the subject. Message is the instance of this, one instance of this email message. I'm adding subject, just a message from RPA. You can add whatever you want. Now, where do you want to send this? Okay, send this to, I have given my other email ID, my regular email ID. It will be sent to this ID. From which ID it should be sent? This is actually, this will be displayed in your received message, from which ID it has come. Okay, the message from. So I'm sending it from ravi.raspberrypi@gmail.com because this is the one that I'm using to send the mail. Okay, I don't have to give password here because it is login is actually not taking place in this place. It is taking place in that function. Okay. Now, what is the content? Okay, the content is for content. There is no easy. There is no direct thing like message content. I have to invoke a function message dot set content. Okay, set underscore content. So inside this, I am giving one string. I am healthy and going good. Thank you. This is the text message that I want to send. Now, and finally, I'm done with composing my message, composing my email. I've written what is subject. I've written to where the message has to be sent. Now, remember one more thing. I have actually written this destination address or to address as a list. Okay. The idea here is, in case if you want to add one more email ID, if you want to send it to multiple fellows, you can add one more email ID here. Of course, it should be added as a string. Okay, that's all I need to do. I don't have to do anything else. So if I want to send this to multiple people, I can easily add one more ID or any number of IDs to this list. Okay, so I'm providing the destination as a list. For now, let me use only one ID in that. Okay. In fact, if it is a single ID, even if you remove this square bracket, it will work fine. Okay. If it is for a single ID, you can remove this square brackets. I've kept it as a generic template. I just have to add a few more names to this or few more IDs to this, and that's all I need to do. Okay. This is the from address. This is the content that has been set. What is the content? And now send the message. Okay. So if I send the message, as there is no error message popped up, the message is actually sent. In fact, I got one message in my email notification. Okay, I got one message in my email notification, and maybe I can show it to you. Yeah. Yeah, this is the message that we had sent. So it had a subject message from RPI. Okay. And I'm healthy and good. Thank you. This was the content. Okay. So it is as simple as this. Okay. Yeah. So our main function is this. This is the one which will send the data. Okay. Now I mentioned about the password and other things. So the best way to work around this is I'll remove it from here. Okay. And I will keep it in a separate cell. In fact, in a large file, I can keep it as a global variable. I can keep it as a global variable in some other location or some in the first lines of the code. Okay, I'll separate it from this function. So this being the global variable, it is always available to this function defined inside. But before this function, this must have been defined. Okay, that is very important. Yeah. So the beauty of this is I can use this function to send any type of message. Because if you look around in net, you will find this function to be totally different for different types of messages. The message with the attachment, this function will be different, and message with the HTML, the code will be different. But here it is only the matter of composing the message. Okay. So I think it's almost 12 o'clock now. I'll just give you one more composing of message using the HTML version, and then close it for the day. Attachment part, we will see that in the next class or in the next session. Now, to do the attachment with the attachment, what I need to do here is, sorry, not attachment, it is HTML version. HTML mail without attachment. Now here once again, I'm not going to touch upon that send message or send mail function. It is only, the difference is only in the composing of the mail. Okay. So once again, I will use the same function as in the previous cell. Import this email message. Okay. So I'm creating one email message instance. Then I'm right. This is the same thing what we have used in the previous case. And set content, I'm just writing this is a plain text content. In fact, this will not come in the message over there. Okay. And now I have to add the HTML lines to this so that the HTML mail is sent and it will be displayed in a HTML page in my mailbox. Okay. So for that, I have to use one built-in method called add alternative. Okay. Message.add alternative. Remember, this will be added to the already composed message. This part is already there. Set content is already there. To that, this will be added. Okay. Incidentally, I have found that this text will not appear if I add additional things like add alternative. We'll see that. Now, between these lines, from here to here, it is actually the HTML script. What I have written is a HTML script. And remember that this triple quote is used in Python to designate a multi-line string. Okay, this is a beginning of the multi-line string, and this is where it ends. So this entire paragraph here, this is this considered as a multi-line string, and the backslash used here is only to tell Python or this Python script that this code continues in the next line. Okay, so whenever you have a line of code which is long, okay, so if you have a line of code which is going long, I can continue that code in the next line by putting a backslash. Okay, so now these two lines will be considered as a single line code. So essentially what happens here is this entire thing will be considered as one line. Okay, it is just considered as continuation. That's all. This is not part of your string. This backslash used here is not part of the string. So the string, I mean the HTML script, I think you can very easily understand this HTML script. This is the HTML tag, and then inside that you have a body tag and header one tag, and I am just defining some style for this script or this text that I want to display. Okay, this text will be displayed in H1 style, that is header one. It will be displayed in a large font in the destination browser, and the color I want to set is some slate gray. I'm setting the color to slate gray. Okay, so to this function add alternative, I need to give this string. This is my body of this is HTML script, and one more parameter I have to give is subtype equal to HTML in quotes, in single or double quote, whatever, either of them is fine. Okay, subtype equal to HTML. So remember, this is just invoking one function. Okay, so from here till this point, it is invoking just one function. Okay, and whatever function we have defined earlier, that is send mail, the same function is defined used here, and the variation is, as I mentioned before, is only in composing the mail. So now I am using the same function here, send mail, and this message. Okay, so if I execute this, the message should have gone. Yeah, I got a email notification. So let me just check here. Yeah, it has come. Okay, so you can see that this is displayed in a H1 with the H1 tag. So the color is bluish gray. So the title, I'm sorry, the subject is message from RPI. Okay, and you can also be ensured that the standard encryption is employed in the transmission of this message or this email. Okay. So the organization of this code is, as I mentioned before, in the utility program, you can write the function. Okay. The function for sending the mail, you can write it in the utility program and just import that utility program. This function is always available to you. Okay. This function is always available to you. And the composing of the message. Okay. Composing of this message, you do it in your program from exactly from where you want to send. Okay. Well, the idea here is suppose I read one sensor value. I'll come to this. Suppose I read one sensor value, and that sensor value can be easily placed over here in the content. Okay. So in the routine where you read the sensor and where you want to dispatch that value to some destination or some email, in that place you can write this part of the code. Okay, this part of the code, and just call this function, and your email is gone. Okay, it's as simple as that. So I'm just trying to give you how you can organize your code to make the things readable and also to make the things very easy to work with. Okay. The continuation of this, I'll do it tomorrow for about 5 minutes or 10 minutes. How we can send the message, send the email with attachment with the PDF file or attachment attaching a simple image. Okay, JPEG image. How we can attach a email file and send the data, because this is also required. Suppose if you have logged in your all the data into a file, and if you want to send that file to somebody, I can very easily make use of these simple enough codes to send the data. So the most important things to as a part of preparation is to get this password. Okay, I hope you may have tried it now. You can try it, but before using this password, try to enable your two-step verification, because from the security point of view, it's very important. Okay, so that people will not, nobody else will be able to log in from any other machine unless you decide to go with. Okay, so I think I'll close it for today. Tomorrow we will complete this email sending with the attachments and then proceed further with a few other sensors. I hope the next class is on Monday, I guess, not tomorrow. So have a good day. Let me close it for today.